Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
I'm Grogu.
I'm Drew Jarin from the Northern Outer Rim.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss The Mandalorian Season 3. We're wrapping up the whole season in one pod. And, we're happy to be joined by our good friend from the North, Drew Weisse. Or Drew
The Outer
Jarin
Rim, Justin. The Outer Rim.
I'm sorry. I'm trying. in the real world. So, Drew, it's great to have you back on the show.
Yay.
Thanks for having me back. It's just a real pleasure. I look forward to the opportunities you can invite me. So thanks again. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So The Mandalorian, I know you've been pretty positive about it, so I'm going to get your thoughts first. But before we do that, I want to run down the facts behind the show. So The Mandalorian was 8 episodes or 8 chapters. Season 3 was, as was the first 2 seasons. The first episode aired on March 1st. The final episode aired today, April 19th. It was created by Jon Favreau with Dave Filoni as the executive producer. The cast, of course, Pedro Pascal, Katee Sackhoff, Carl Weathers, Giancarlo Esposito, Mercedes Vernado, Emily Swallow, Katy M. O'Brien, and Taika Waititi. And I want to point out that this season, for the first time ever, they credited the 2 stunt actors who actually are in the Mandalorian costume for Pedro Pascal. One of the stunt doubles' name is Brendan Wayne. He's the grandson of John Wayne, which I think that's crazy.
That's so cool.
Yeah, the other guy's name is Lateef Crowder. He's a martial artist. So I don't know if y'all noticed this, but at the end of the main credits, those names are listed every time. I thought that was kind of cool to give the people who are actually in that costume and doing that work the credit they deserve. So anyway, very cool stuff. So let's get overall thoughts of the season. Like I said, Drew, I know you've been really enjoying this season. What are your overall thoughts of season 3?
I have really enjoyed it. Again, I'm a Star Wars fan from way back in the day. This didn't disappoint me one bit. I'm, as much of a Boba Fett fan as I am, I'm honestly one of the factors I loved about the season is he didn't show up. It focused on the Mandalorian and it showed up on Grogu, which it needed to do. I know a year ago, February, we covered the book of Boba Fett. We were like, is this the Mandalorian 1.7, 2.75, or is this the book of Boba Fett? So it was great. I love the storyline. I know I messaged you a bit, Justin. I think it was Guns for Hire, the 6th episode or chapter 22 or the 6th episode of season 3. I was kind of joking with you, who's going to cameo next? I was just impressed with the big names they're getting to pop in this series all of a sudden. And it was very enjoyable. So I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed the ride. I didn't really think there was going to be an 8th episode because the way that last week's episode ended, The Spies, I thought that'd be the cliffhanger, but then I saw there was, and not disappointed.
Very cool. Brittany, what are your overall thoughts for the season?
Overall for the season, I like Drew. I really did enjoy it. There's one episode that I absolutely had a very difficult time getting through just because I don't think, now that this whole season is completed, I don't think that episode was completely necessary, or at least the major storyline in this one episode was completely necessary. You could have made the point that you wanted to make in a different way or shorter. We'll get to that a little in a little bit, but overall, as a whole, I love the fact that we were focusing on the Mandalorian and Grogu. We, didn't have deviations of other guests type characters like what Drew mentioned with Boba Fett. I love the addition of Bo-Katan Kryze. I did not watch Rebels or Clone Wars. I think she's in Clone Wars. But Katee Sackhoff killed it in this role. And I know she voiced Bo-Katan in Clone Wars. So I liked her addition because she is Mandalorian. And so that really helped tie in everything with the title of the show, The Mandalorian. So yeah, really great. The cameos that Drew was talking about, man, those are awesome. Those are totally awesome. Real quick, Justin, I'm going to give a shout out to Mel from Geeking Out with Melly Mel. She says, hey, everyone. Hey, Britt, Justin, and Drew. Thanks for joining, Mel. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, we appreciate having her join us for the chat. So my thoughts on this show, I really like the characters for this show, but I was pretty lukewarm on the season until the final 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Chapters 23, 24, or episodes 7 and 8 of the season really kind of started to get that look and feel of the Star Wars that I like, that I grew up with. We saw just basic stuff. We got to see droids helping out. We got to see the good guys fighting Imperials. We got to see the bad guy dressed in a cool black suit, and there weren't a lot of lightsabers, but there was like that kind of fighting, and the action was turned up. The final 2 episodes of this season, to me, saved this season for me because I was like, this show. I don't know. Like I said, I like the characters, but it was honestly, I was just watching every week, but not really. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't really enjoying it. And then the last 2 episodes are so good. It really, like, they mentioned the Force. Like, also that's something I think is cool without like mentioning Sith, which I hate. I hate the term Sith. Like I love the stuff that, like, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. That's my Star Wars, and I really feel like these 2 episodes kind of captured that. Just the way the show just felt like it kind of leveled up, or it was on a bigger scale. The final 2 episodes, it just looked better. Like we were in settings that are familiar. Seeing a droid go down a hallway and doing like spy kind of stuff, and it just like it kind of like was nostalgic, which I think that's the way this stuff should be. It should like highlight the things that made Star Wars what it is. And a lot of the times on this show, when they're on these these planets and there's people, and they're just, to me, they look like just people dressed in like Star Wars cosplay on a soundstage.
Obi-Wan
was really bad about that. But this show, I mean, I think the whole season looked pretty good, but like the last 2 episodes just looked so great. I mean, that it was almost like a movie quality to it. I mean, the action in this last episode, for a 40-minute episode, which actually is probably more like 35 when you take all the credits out. I mean, it was just go go go, and the fighting was awesome. You got Mandalorians flying, you got the Imperials with their flight, their backpack things, their jetpacks or whatever. The hand-to-hand stuff. You got the Red Guards.
the Red Guards are so
fighting
cool.
Mando, and then you had Grogu, and he's helping out using the Force. I mean, it's just like all the stuff that you want for Star Wars. They gave it to us in this episode, and I think like this final episode today is, to me, it's right up there with the season 2 finale, which of course brought back my favorite character, Luke Skywalker. So I from not really being in on this show most season, I'm excited to see like what's next, because that was awesome.
If I could,
Yay!
guys.
Go ahead.
Justin likes something Star Wars. Sorry.
Yeah. So Justin, I thought it ironic because being the oldest of the group, your Star Wars is my Star Wars, right? So I was there in 77 at 7 years old, all the way through to 83, and I thought it ironic because I thought in episode 7 and episode 8, the backgrounds, I'm like, this kind of looks like the original Death Star when they're going through the hallways, and the pattern, the light patterns of the hallways of the, it's that long elliptical, then the dot and all that. I'm like, this is classic Star Wars. I'm like, they must have, I don't know if they just with computer generation or, but it reminded me of that in, when R5's doing his thing in this latest episode too, had reminiscence of the original old Obi-Wan deactivating the tractor beam and those little scooter floor droids or
mouse droids.
Yeah, those mouse droids. And when Chewie barked at them in the 1977. So I agree with you. We return to the feel of 7, 8. And I know that episodes 1, 2, and 3 are almost as despised or more despised than 6, 7, and 8. And there was some, when you talk about that going to the other planets, that is where I think Star Wars has failed. In my opinion, I agree with you. It looks like they're going on a soundstage in a cosplay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't have, I think that's the thing about Star Wars is like the sound, the look and the sound of Star Wars is like just hearing the blaster, like a blaster, or, seeing the starfight and seeing the Imperial kind of ships. Like it's all about it. There's a feel to it. There's a sound to it. And there's just a certain aesthetic that, like, I wish that all of their Star Wars content was like this, because, and if that means that there's less of it and it's higher quality, sign me up for that.
Agreed. Did you know the shock troopers can actually hit things with their blasters?
Yeah, no, the Imperial troopers are
they're badass.
They're better now. Yeah, they're definitely more formidable. But I just like,
because they're not clones anymore.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Even getting into kind of a nitpick, like obviously not so much for this series, but for what happens in the Rise of Skywalker with the cloning stuff. Like the way they did the cloning in this episode and talked about it, I thought was really smart. Like it was really well done. Now I wonder.
I felt it a little random.
Well, I mean, they did mention the cloning throughout the season. That's why the doctor,
No. I get
Right.
that.
Yeah.
It just at the very end with this finale, it just felt very random that you do get to see clones, and it's not like Snoke or anything like that, right? Because the fact that General Hux is involved in these conversations, it's a younger General Hux. Now, fun fact, this is also another Brendan Gleeson son, because Domhnall Gleeson is General
Okay.
Hux in Force Awakens or Jedi or whatever, the
All three of them,
sequels.
correct? Yep.
And all three of them. This is his brother who's
Okay.
playing basically a younger version
That's
of his
awesome.
own character. So they're keeping it in the
Oh.
family, y'all. They're keeping it in the Gleason
Mhm.
family. All right. Like Skarsgård, who? Just kidding.
Right.
We all love Skarsgård.
Every one
but
of them.
every
Right.
all 25 of them. Listen.
Yeah. If
No,
we get
but
them to subscribe to the podcast, our numbers would be huge because
Skarsgård.
yeah.
Anyway, so no, I first of all, I love that they actually reached out to another Gleason and got him to be part of the Star Wars fam. But to me, because this episode wasn't like so heavily focused on Grogu and the purpose of why Grogu was needed for these clones, you got the payoff finally, but it just felt kind of random that the cloning was talked a little bit more towards the end, and then we're actually showing it at the end, and it's that of Moff Gideon. It's not Snoke or anything like that. He's trying to clone himself, I guess.
Yeah, well, but I mean, obviously, the cloning, I guess, is ultimately for the Emperor, right?
Yeah, ultimately, right.
But I mean, I think it's interesting if Moff Gideon had his own idea, which it seems like he does have his own plans to take over. I mean, I did like, I think in episode 7, there was a reference to Thrawn, which of course Thrawn is going to be in the Ahsoka series. I'm pretty sure it's confirmed.
Yes.
So I did like how there's references to other.
And I love who they cast. I love who they cast for Thrawn. Sorry, sidebar.
Who did they cast for that role?
Oh God, he's actually the brother to Mads Mikkelsen. It's
okay,
Lars
yeah,
Mikkelsen.
Okay,
yeah, he's perfect casting.
Okay,
perfect casting.
Okay,
yeah,
but no, I like the fact that like it seems like Moff Gideon has his own agenda.
Yes,
and I do enjoy that part of it. Because I mean, if you've listened to anything about Star Wars, you've heard me talk about. I just detest the Rise of Skywalker and what they did with that. How they wrapped up the Skywalker saga with that movie, and I just don't like the idea of bringing back the Emperor, who we saw die. Like if you establish cloning, okay, but if you just like all of a sudden it's like, well, he cloned himself, and it's like, well, if you show us that, I can accept it. Like, I mean, for example, I'm going to ask you the question, and hopefully Mel has left the chat because we are going to spoil some stuff. But do y'all think that, and I'll give Drew this question first. Do you think Moff Gideon is dead?
Do I think I absolutely do think he is.
Really?
I do. They destroyed the clones. I'm going to mention something about the clones. I'm on the fence about that, especially. Well, I understand what happened and I understand the double cross there. We'll talk to some of the episodes here, but I had that. There was that one later Aliens movie where she finds pictures. I was having flashbacks to that movie where she sees multiple iterations of herself in one of those Alien movies. I can't think Sigourney Weaver's name in those movies right now, but anyways, but she's going through and she sees, and when I saw that, I was kind of like, oh, that's a little freaky. And I guess I get what's going on to the point. And then when he explains, I'm making the best of me and also trying to integrate probably the metachlorians they talk about, we learned about in
the Force,
in the fort, right? The metachlorian atoms, or they're the subatomic particles there that make up those that are strong with the Force. So I thought that was unique. But yes, I think in my honest opinion, they left this that I'm not sure there's going to be any more Mandalorian after this. I didn't have that feel. I mean, they left it. It could be or could not be. Depends upon money, cast, and everything else.
Yeah. Well, I can answer that question, but I'm going to say that for
okay,
later on.
I haven't researched it, so go ahead.
Yeah. But Brittany, what do you think? Because I mean, the way Moff Gideon, like, he goes up in flames, right? The whole area does, except for.
Does he?
Well,
does he?
I mean,
okay.
Now he has that suit. He has that new, what's it called? Dark Trooper suit, which is kind of.
He's got the Beskar alloy resource that he used from Mandalore. I do not think this is the last we'll see of him.
Right.
I think he made a great escape in the flames, because let's remember, while he was fighting Mando, he used like the flamethrower feature, if you will, with the suit, and that didn't burn away on Mando because he too has the Beskar armor. Maybe not as much as the Dark Trooper. Which, by the way, that looked and sounds really cool, like Dark Trooper. That just, I don't know, it sounds cool to me. I don't think Moff Gideon is gone. We did see that the clones were destroyed, thanks Mando, but no, I do not believe this is the last we've seen of Moff Gideon. He can't go out that simple like that. We thought that at the end of season 2, he was being arrested, he was going to be put on trial. No, he made a great escape. Can I ask one question about that? The only reason I question that, I know, and again, it could be because Darth Vader went spinning in a TIE fighter and he straightened himself out. But why then? In my question, I saw those flames. Why was Ashoka hoping that little shield, and why would they have been fearing those flames? Knowing, I mean, they didn't have as much Beskar, to your point. So, and knowing how they always leave that, like I was saying, they left it if there's going to be, and whatever you reveal to me later that I have not researched yet. I could see that coming back, and if he ends up all scarred up like Anakin too, I'm like, whatever. But I just was wondering why they were freeing flame, and again showed Grogu doing his force bubble thing. So right,
I don't know. I saw him get toasted. I'm watching it here on my iPad on the side, and it looks like he's fried. But I could be wrong. You're right.
There's no body, there's no remnants left of him. So that's what I'm saying. Right. It's kind of like a clean getaway. I think he's. Yep, I think he's injured. Probably more of his pride, but I definitely think he's alive.
The only thing I can think of is that maybe it's a clone. Maybe he did have clones.
Maybe
because
although he did say that Mando destroyed them before they could draw their first breath. So unless that was just to throw him off the scent, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, I mean, who knows? Like if he had him somewhere else, or I don't know, because ideally you would think he isn't gone, right? But then the way it all plays out, it looks like he does die. I mean, if he survived, I'd like to see like how he survived that. So
it's Star Wars. They bring people back from the dead, Justin.
No, I know, and that's something I don't like. That's again, we're talking about the Rise of Skywalker, to bring the Emperor back and kind of out of nowhere. It just was like
so bad.
I was about ready to leave when I saw that.
Yeah,
but
it's like
bad.
I paid $12.85 for this. I'm sitting through this. I don't care how bad it is. I'm gonna enjoy my nachos. Like in the day.
It's okay. His $30 nachos.
Right.
It's cool.
It's okay to create new villains. That's why I like him. That's why I like Moff Gideon. And I think that once Giancarlo Esposito came back on this show, it made the show better. It really did. It made having that actor and having that character be out there in this world makes it more interesting to me. And the thought of Thrawn out there also is very interesting. I don't know a ton about it. I listened to an audiobook. Heir of the Empire, I believe, is the one I listened to.
I read all 3 of those books.
Yep.
And they are fantastic stories. And that's, I think I shared with you guys in the book of Boba Fett over a year ago. That is where I thought 6, 7, 8 were going to go. And that's where they needed to go. So the only 2 saving graces from all 3 of those movies, from episodes of The Force Awakens, episode 7, was the scene of the X-Wings screaming across that lake, and some of the big deal comments between Han Solo and I can't think of it. His character, Finn's character. And I mean, Poe Dameron was entertaining that one. And then in the second one, the showing of the skills of the Praetorian Guard, which we got to see in this Mando season. We got to see, because in Return of the Jedi, they're sitting there and the Emperor's like, you can leave guards. I mean, they look bad. I remember the badass. I remember the characters always, the figurines look cool, but it's like, that was one of the few saving graces of that 3 series. And that second one, seeing them in action and how they fight. Yes. And they really brought that in here. So I try to make as much lemonade out of lemons as I can. So that was what I could get out, squeeze out of 7 and 8, 9. Yeah. You squeeze, and it's just not coming. Sorry, there's no goodness. Oh well.
No, I do like that though, because you're finding highlights. Because you're right in Return of the Jedi, and I think I had the figure also. And they just in the movie they literally do nothing. They just stand there,
and then they leave. That's
do
something.
Yeah, the look of the Red Guards are just incredible. But to see them, I mean, for them to make their entrance into the scene, and they're moving so like swiftly, but it's like slow-mo at the same time. It's so cool looking, and just like you're saying, Drew, you see them in action for the first time in The Last Jedi.
Correct.
And that was amazing.
Yeah.
to see like the elite, if you will,
Mhm.
in action, and we got to see that again for this finale. Justin, or maybe it was Drew, you mentioned about how episode 7 or for Mando seemed like it may be the cliffhanger into season 4. I agree with you that I if they left it off that way, I would have totally been okay with it. I'm a little conflicted with the finale, just because I'm glad they were able to wrap that up. So it seems I still am of the belief Moff Gideon is alive out there biding his time. But it's almost like a happy ending. You get a little bit of a happy ending for Mando. He's adopted Grogu, and now he's Din Grogu.
Yes, I think that's correct.
And they have their little spot over here on Navarro, thanks to Carl Weathers' character that I can't remember off the top of my head. The return, Greek Karga, the return of Taika Waititi's droid. I was like, IG-11. I'm like, what the hell? Like, they actually brought him back. Like, we saw the body be used. Grogu finally was more mobile and able to quote talk. Yes, no. That was adorable.
Those were hilarious.
Adorable. Like
and funny out of place too. At times,
yeah,
I was like, no, yeah, like there's this violence going on. He's like, no, yes, that was hilarious. Sorry, to interject.
So sweet. It is so sweet. I absolutely loved it because like he's old. He's like 50 something years old or whatever, but he's still like incapable of speaking, and it's just I like that we're kind of seeing that progression of Grogu kind of coming into his own, because now he was accepted as a youngling amongst the Mandalorians, and then now he's an apprentice to Din Djarin. So that was really cool. He's also knighted. He's also knighted on Plaisir 15, which I thought was so like completely random. But yeah, like we see the progression of Grogu since he left Luke, but he's able to wield the Force a lot better than he previously could. He doesn't tire out so easily, it seems. I don't know. Just give me all the Grogu. Like just give me all the Grogu. I'm here for Grogu.
I'm not kidding. My favorite moment of the whole season was in episode 7, which is chapter 23, is whenever Grogu gets the IG-11 like body, and he becomes the pilot of IG-11. And it becomes IG-12, and I like how those little Anzelli creatures, they see him, and one of them's like,
baby,
bad baby, no squeezy, bad baby, no squeezy. I laughed so hard.
I did too.
The way he says that, like. Oh my
so
God.
cute.
That was funny.
Yeah. Which those are the same thing. Like Babu Frick, he's one of those, right? From okay. So see that there are things from the Rise of Skywalker. What was that little droid that was in Rise of Skywalker? I kind of like that droid too. I mean, I like
a little conehead droid guy. That one? Yeah,
I like BB-8, of course, but the other, the little
guy.
Yeah.
I think I'll look him up, but
he was like green and white. I think was this called. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, and then the return of seeing Ognaughts again. The very first season of Mando, we saw him befriend an Ognaught, which I can't Quill, and so when I say they, and to clarify, Mando or Din Djarin and Bo-Katan Kryze, they've teamed up. They're on this mission to go and bring forth all the Mandalorian tribes together as one, zealots or not, and they're at Plaisir 15. Can we talk about this episode? Like the cameos of this episode, first and foremost, was redonkulous. I laughed so hard when I saw Jack Black because I'm like, this is so random, but fitting in a very weird way. And then Lizzo, like, repping Houston all day, right? She's from Houston. She's making it big in the industry right now. She's wonderful, but I lost it, y'all. I lost it, absolutely lost it when I saw Christopher Lloyd and the memes that came out of it about him being in The Mandalorian, and then connection to Back to the Future of man in DeLorean. I'm like, oh my God, I need people. I need people to not.
Yeah, I saw that a couple of days after the episode, and I was like, that's so creative. Like, that's
so good.
Yeah.
So good. But yeah, like that episode with Bo-Katan and Mando seeing the Ognaughts again, and just how Mando's even evolved. You know, he was like once this person that kind of cut off everyone in the world, droids included, rightfully so. But now he's willing to work with other people, willing to be a little bit more open and showing the ropes, if you will, to Bo-Katan. You know, there's a certain way you have to talk to the Ugnaughts, and then so on and so forth. That was a fun episode. That absolutely was. I really enjoyed the Plaza 15 episode.
I found it ironic to your comments there, Brittany, because this is the gruff bounty hunter talking to who should be a royal leader.
I know. I know.
I thought an interesting table turn or twist on that. I'm like, oh, okay. So,
but listen, he was wielding the dark saber at the time. He could do whatever he wants.
That's true.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Question for you guys: What is the tie with Jon Favreau and Bryce Dallas Howard? I noticed she has directed one episode every season. They've been very good episodes, like the one in Plaza 15. I'm going to admit this in front of a whole bunch of people. I did not realize that's Ron Howard's daughter. My lovely wife let me know that.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, I think.
I did not know that. I just not all into pop culture, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And she does a fantastic. But do you guys know if they're friends or that?
I think she had reached out to them about directing, because I think she direct the very first time she directed. Maybe was the very first time we met Bo-Katan.
She did on an episode in the first season in the Sanctuary. I'm trying to remember
that's
that one,
right.
Season 1. But I think in season 2, you are correct on that too. But I know she has had one episode every season, and I thought she had more. But no, she does a fantastic job.
She does.
Yeah, I think she grew up as a Star Wars fan because her dad, Ron Howard, obviously he knew George Lucas pretty well. Ron Howard directed Solo, or at least he was brought in to finish Solo. And
I forgot about that detail.
I think it's one of those things where she grew up with it. She's in the industry. She was directing other things, and she just got the opportunity and ran with it. And she's really into it. So that's also really cool. And her episodes are really solid episodes.
They
so
absolutely are. I mean, just with storytelling, because up until that point, up until her episode, I didn't really have a favorite episode, and then that happened again. Great cameos with Elite with Christopher Lloyd, and then kind of making him into the bad guy overall. And it was just, I don't know, it was just wonderful to see that. But one of the episodes leading up to that was, oh my God, this episode revolving around the former Imperial doctor who was, tasked to, I guess, use Grogu's DNA or midichlorians to clone and all this other crap. I get the point that episode was trying to make with showing the rehabilitation program, the amnesty program, whatever, these former Imperial people, and try to put them into the New Republic. But that overall episode was not needed. Like, that storyline was not needed.
Once you mentioned that, I was thinking which episode. I'm thinking she's mentioned that one, because I did message Justin after that one. I'm like, that was 45 minutes. I could have been done in about 15. I got
that
it.
was tough.
Yeah.
And it ultimately went nowhere with the doctor. Like, obviously, like, did he die? Like,
she wiped his mind.
Okay, so Katy M. O'Brien's character, which I don't know her name,
right?
But
it was Ella Kane was her name.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she obviously worked with Moff Gideon. She's part of this amnesty program. Oh, life is great in the New Republic. And let me show you. Oh, doctor, do you really want to continue your work? Because we can go and hijack some equipment. And she sets him up as if this was his idea, right? But she's still like working for Moff Gideon, right? She really hasn't been rehabilitated or whatever. Okay. Tell that story. Don't tell the story that involves the doctor, because that ultimately did not matter. Or am I just crazy?
It wasn't quite a Coach Beard episode, shall we say? But it had flavors of it, so I don't disagree. So,
Brittany, what I heard about that, and so I have not seen Andor, and I know you have watched Andor.
Yes,
and Andor is a show that a lot of people have enjoyed.
Wow.
I've heard, yes.
Yeah, critically, it's like critically acclaimed, but I have not watched it.
After episode 3, I will wholeheartedly agree. It is critically acclaimed, but those first 3 episodes are tough.
Right.
Got to hang on the slow burn, huh?
Yeah.
Jesus.
But see, I think that what I'd heard is that episode 3 of this season of Mandalorian was kind of similar to Andor in that in Andor, it's not about Skywalkers. It's not about lightsabers. It's about people in the galaxy, right? People all
Yes.
across the galaxy and
Yes.
their plight in the world, or their plight
Yes.
in the galaxy. And I think that's what that was meant. It was meant to kind of ground the story as much as you can of a space opera.
I mean, okay, I get that.
Yeah.
But we could have definitely shortened that
I
storyline
agree.
about
I agree.
the amnesty program and the fact that people that were formerly Imperial can be put into new jobs, and just shorten it. Okay. The real takeaway from this is the fact that Katy M. O'Brien's character has not parted ways from the Imperial way, right? She
Right.
obviously was still working with Moff Gideon. Elaborate on that. Don't elaborate on this other thing. But yeah.
Well, her
Waste-
character didn't die, so we
No,
might
her
see-
character did not die. Like,
So
you know,
I mean, we might see her again. And that's all I can say. Maybe, yeah.
I agree. And that's further my point of Moff Gideon's not dead.
And in the books of Kevin J. Anderson's with the Heir of the Empire, I wish I could remember them all, the names, but I mean, there have been remnants of the Imperial that are gathering. Exactly. So that's why I saw a lot of the 3 books I read in 93 and 92, 93, 94, something like that, in those 3 years, where they gather, and then it's who can find the Corellian fleet first. Is it going to be the New Republic, or is it going to be, they just call themselves the Imperials, you know.
Right.
They didn't have the New Order or anything like that,
yeah.
but same concept. And when I saw the previews in 2015, I kind of thought, oh, that looks like, but where's Grand Admiral Thrawn? I'm like, well, Snoke, I guess that no. So it just, but to your point, you know, every series has it's at least in the Mandalorian, one was going to wander. That one wandered quite a bit. That I think was at the 3rd episode, like you said, chapter 19. And and when it came out, the convert, I was like, you know, that I saw. That's when Bo-Katan Kryze rescues Mando from the deep pool, not realizing he took 2 steps and dropped, I don't know, a fathom. And I'm like, cool, we're going to go with this. And all of a sudden, now we're on Coruscant. I'm like, okay. And I thought the convert was more about him going into the water and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there, of all the things, yes, you know, I'm glad there were others. And yeah, 7 and 8 definitely and 6 with the one you know, Bryce Dallas Howard to bring her in, and then tie it up with 7 and 8 was a great ending to this 3rd season for me.
Yeah, quite honestly, I'm kind of blanking on the first 2 episodes. My bad.
Yeah, let me see.
It's like they were fine. Obviously, they weren't that impressionable, if I can't recall.
Well, the thing I remember about the first episode, I think it's like the very first part of it, is they're doing one of those Mandalorian ceremonies, and the alligator dinosaur thing pops up for the first time, which, I mean, it looked great. The beast looked incredible.
Yeah.
But then, like, you know, later on in the season, it happens again, and you're just like, don't these Mandalorians understand, like where you're doing this is not a good location, because there's this massive crocodile dinosaur that's just waiting to like feed on y'all. So, like, you know, figure it out.
Yeah.
And I, you know, to go off of that, there was that raptor episode where the Mandalorian child is taken.
Right.
That one was kind of a weird thing where, you know, they kill the
weird
raptor, but then they keep the babies, which I understand, like, it's Star Wars and Disney, but it's like, I mean, killing the mother was worse than like, whatever she could do for those. Like, if you're
quick question.
Caring, go ahead.
Did you guys get a Jurassic Park feel at the end? Because wasn't it that alligator thing? No, that was something else that I'm trying to remember. No, they did kill the mother. I had.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking of a scene that, that was that because
I know what you're talking about, Drew.
It's not. Yeah. I'm getting it confused. Yep.
But with that episode, Justin, where they killed the mother, they not only return, you know, the Mandalorian child, right? With Paz Vizsla, or whatever his name is. I want to call him Vizsla, because that's how you spell, like, Vizsla dog.
Oh, cool.
You know,
that
like
works.
the Hungarian dogs. Anyway, so when they bring him back, they also bring back, like, the babies of the mother, and it's like, how did all 3 of them fit into that ship and not kill everybody in that ship? I'm like, also, what are you going to do with them? Are you going to roast them? Are you going to, like, air fry them? Like, what are you going to do with them? Like,
no, they're
what's happening?
They're supposed to be part of.
They're going to train them. right? That's what they said. They were going to train them the Mandalorian way or whatever.
As
Said.
part of the tribe. And ironically,
Yeah.
we never saw them again in any of the first
I know.
episodes. So
I know,
maybe they got hit the air fryer, to your point, Brittany. maybe one of the Mandalorians had the air fryer attachment on their arm. I don't know. I did like the comment about Moff Gideon said, well, you Mandalorians and you lose all your gizmos, did he say, or gadgets? That was
trinkets,
kind of
trinkets.
Yeah, that was well done.
Yeah, and speaking on that, Drew, that's a good transition because I want to talk about the Darksaber because it was such a big part of the first couple seasons, especially the second season.
Yep. And
so in this season, obviously, Din Djarin still has it, and then he gives it back to Bo-Katan, and then in the today's finale, she's fighting Moff Gideon, and it's a great battle. Like it's the action in this episode was so impressive. I thoroughly enjoyed the action. I wish we had more action throughout the season like this because this action was like, man, this is Star Wars. This is the stuff I like. But during the battle where she has her all powerful Darksaber and he's got that like double-ended shock stick or whatever that those red guards, what are the red guards called?
They do call them Praetorians. They do use that term.
Okay. So he's battling with her, and then he just like kind of grabs the Darksaber and like crushes it, like crushes the handle, and it's gone. Drew, were you surprised? Like, is the Darksaber gone? What do you think about that?
Along the lines, I know in my heart of hearts that Moff Gideon isn't gone, and you guys have thoroughly convinced me. I'm not sure it's gone. Being the Marvel fan I am, the only issue I had with the Dark Troopers, I'm like, this is feeling a lot like Iron Wars for a little while because these suits are pretty awesome, but they were pretty awesome. It was fun for Star Wars. So, is it gone? I didn't see it at that end when they're having the celebration there, but in front of the forge. So, maybe I know that lightsabers, I believe, are made of something called kyber crystals. Maybe whatever crystal or energy source did get crushed by the super dark trooper suit that Moff Gideon had. So it looks like it's gone, but in Star Wars, gone apparently doesn't always mean gone. So I have no idea.
So, he makes a valid point.
Yeah.
Because it did look like he busted it somehow while she was holding it, because he was like crushing her hand and then in turn like crushed the part of the handle or whatever you call it. So yeah, it looked pretty busted. It was kind of what do you call it? Sparks were going off. It could be gone, just like the point Drew made. It wasn't part of the celebration where the Mandalorians have retaken Mandalore. They've reignited the Great Forge, if you will, if that's what it's called.
Yes, it is.
I don't know anything, people. Hey, look, I know something.
Yep, absolutely. You were correct.
Oh, anyway, but that being said, I think it was just more symbolic to get Bo-Katan to reclaim Mandalore. She never really ruled Mandalore for that long. I don't believe her family obviously did. And I think it was just probably more symbolic. Like, in order for her to get all the tribes to unite, she needed that Darksaber because that's part of their lore. And now that she's accomplished that, they're all back on Mandalore. It's like, well, who the fuck cares? Like, it's, we're back here. Like, we've done the thing. We've defended our home world. Like, let's rebuild. So I don't think it's of any consequence at this point.
Yeah. I thought it like they dispatched it pretty easily for like such a mythical, magical weapon that was so important. Like, it was I was more apt to think that Moff Gideon would just take it from her. Like in that moment, that battle, I'm thinking, oh, is she gonna die? Because she came in for the save for Mando, and I'm thinking, oh, this is there's like 10 minutes left in this episode. She's gonna die, or whatever's gonna happen. Then Mando comes in and saves her with Grogu's help. But I just to me, the Darksaber just being destroyed so quickly and so easily, I did not expect that. And hopefully they're, if it's gone, it's gone. But to build it up and then for just, for it to be crushed, which with a super suit, which it's a cool super suit, no doubt about that. But I just figured that weapon would have more weight than that.
I mean, to build it the whole Skywalker trilogy and then to end it with Rey saying she chooses to be a Skywalker. I mean, shit happens.
That's true.
Yeah,
I
I
do
think
have
it's
more
I think it
faith.
served its purpose.
Yeah, I do have more faith in Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni with the stories that they're going to tell. I do think they have a plan and they have an end game in mind. I don't think that it's
Yeah.
kind of willy nilly like what happened with the sequel series. So
Mm-mm.
I don't think it's going to be something like that. I just wonder, much like how Moff Gideon just disappears or dies or whatever, the disappearance of that weapon or the destruction of that weapon, leaves it open to like, is it really gone, or I don't know.
I think that just means that he's gonna have to regroup and figure out some other way to take revenge on Din Djarin and Grogu and the whole of Mandalore. I mean, that'll be interesting if he tries to again, because obviously Mandalorians are stronger together. So like,
That was a cool comment.
that was
Yeah,
really cool. So yeah.
good timing for that. Too.
Just real quick on a comment you made earlier about episode 7, 8 here, and I had to go back and look, and that was the Convert episode that turned into the space soap opera for a bit there. But you talked about Star Wars action when Mando and Bo-Katan had to fight those TIE fighters on whatever home planet was that time. That was pretty cool.
That was very cool.
Yeah, I'm like, that's classic Star Wars. We're seeing TIE interceptors, TIE bombers, and then to the last 2 episodes. So I just wanted to pulling out the best of the worst episode of some of the things I remember. So
yeah, that was you're right.
Awesome.
That was the beginning of that episode. The same thing I thought of, like, that looks really good.
Yep.
That looks like it's from the movies or something. That's really well
absolutely.
done. So something else I wanted to highlight here was in episode 4, chapter 20, we got to see a Jedi. So Ahmed Best, who is best known for playing Jar Jar Binks, was a Jedi.
John had to point that out to me.
So I wasn't familiar with his Jedi. Apparently, the name of the Jedi that he played is Kelleran Beck. I'm sorry, and he was from a 2020 web game show called Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge, which I'm not familiar with that at all.
Mm-mm.
So I'm not even sure a web game show. I don't know if I get this from Wikipedia. I don't know if is it a game show? Is it like a mobile video game? I have no idea. But anyway, he was a Jedi. I think he was the lone Jedi we got this season. But I did think it was cool because he was shown in a flashback that Grogu had of Order 66. So when the Jedi Temple was under attack.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, do you have any background with Kelleran Beck?
No, but I recognized him from something else. But I thought that was neat to use him and retell that story because of episodes 1, 2, and 3, as dark as it was. That scene, and I'm glad. I think we mentioned that in a discussion in the book Boba Fett. That could have been very brutal, but the murdering of the Anakin walks into the temple of the young Jedi, and that's where he escaped from. That would have, in a book written about it, it was pretty brutal. But to that point, that has a lot of carryover to why I would say Grogu is, when he sees certain things, reminds him that was a horrible experience. And I think he has some of that lone survivor. I'm trying
he's
to
got PTSD.
Yeah, exactly. There's
he's got PTSD.
Survivor kind of stuff like Marcus Luttrell has. Hey, I got survive and I had to carry on, but there's flashbacks to that. So you asked me, I don't know much about the Jedi. I thought that was a cool sequence and from that episode, and the whole thing of that episode I liked of the foundling. I have a son too, so I was actually kind of touched at the very end. Because I think of Big Paz Vizsla, as that was his name, the guy with. He to me is Jesse the Body from Predator. He's the guy with the Gatling gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to see that that father side of him, I could relate to was awesome. So that's one thing I really enjoyed about that. But I couldn't answer your question more about, I just enjoyed the Jedi. I enjoyed the flashback scene there from what would have been episode 3.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about that particular Jedi either. It wasn't until after the episode or maybe after that sequence played out that John said to me, he goes, that's Jar Jar Binks, right? I'm like, excuse you, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, so they try to redeem his appearance in Star Wars franchise and give him like a role to be the hero versus the really annoying character that everyone hates.
The one thing, if you guys noticed, that was the sole episode of all of them so far that Carl Weathers directed, and I thought that was well done, and I really enjoyed that. I said, seeing that now, knowing the little bit about Carl Weathers, I'm like, that made sense. I mean, it seems like every director has their flavor of, and that was well done, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope to see if they do season 4 that he gets another shot at another one or two. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just another note on Ahmed Best, like not only Brittany does he kind of redeem himself in Star Wars terms, but that actor actually, he had a really hard time personally with being Jar Jar Binks. I mean, like,
Yeah.
this guy was like apparently like suicidal from like,
Yeah.
because that character was so ripped on, and
Yes.
I mean, that was it's a very divisive character to say the least. Not a lot of people
Sure.
like Jar Jar Binks,
Sure.
and the actor himself, he took it pretty hard, and I think it kind of maybe hindered his career, or in his mind, that's what happened. So,
Yeah.
for him, it was like to come back to Star Wars, but then to get to be a hero and a Jedi
yeah.
and a character who's trying to do the right thing and trying to save the day. I think that was cool on a couple of levels. So.
That was well played on John Favreau's part,
Yeah.
or Dave Filoni, whoever decided to say, "Hey, let's reach out to Ahmed Best and get him to be a part of this and give him like a role that he would be excited about. People would be surprised, I think, because like I said, I didn't know that was the same actor who played Jar Jar. And let me be clear, I don't hate the actor, hate the character, right?
Yeah.
And it's not because of the actor and his performance. That was the direction. That's what he was told to do, and he did the job. Character just is not a good character. And that's no fault of the actor. That is the fault of the creator. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's be real.
And that was just I think that character now would play differently than it did back then.
Oh God, yeah, definitely.
I think that because everyone loved the first 3 movies so much, meaning when I say the first 3, I mean New Hope,
yes, 4, 5,
Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and people are waiting for so long. And I mean, I remember back then, I didn't believe there was ever going to be another Star Wars movie. So when there was, I mean, I was so excited. And then when I saw what we got, I was incredibly disappointed because in my mind, I couldn't even believe there's a possibility that a Star Wars movie would be bad. Like that wasn't reality to me. I remember like the first time I saw the first movie, was it called
Phantom Menace?
Phantom Menace,
Yep.
yeah. And remember like halfway through just thinking, wow, this is really bad. Like this is, I can't believe this is so bad. Like this is.
I actually like Phantom Menace. It has nothing to do with Jar Jar. I actually just like Phantom Menace.
Right.
I like Qui-Gon Jinn. I like the introduction of Obi-Wan. I like Darth
Saving
Maul.
graces,
I like
yes,
that
I
fight
agree. Yep.
sequence. Duel of the Fates is one of the best.
Oh, the song is awesome.
The
Yeah.
song's amazing, but
Yeah.
the fight sequence is great as well. I really actually do like Phantom of the Menace.
And I think I brought up in the Boba Fett one, and one of the books I read, Luke has to go back and discover a source of the dark side back on planet Yavin in one of those temples. He comes across they don't use the term Sith in the book at the time. It was just another dark lord or a master of the dark side, Exar Kun, who had the first, the big thing with Scooby. He fought a guy with a double bladed lightsaber. That was a big thing for reading in a book. So you try to make the lemonade out of things, and I think you hit them all about episode 1. Real quick thing, episode 3 of that original series, I did like that opening scene with the Jedi starfighters, and I think it's so cool that Bo-Katan Kryze and so much of the fleet is made up of those Jedi starfighters that the original Republic used. I think they're a very cool ship. And now that you have those mixed in with X-Wings, I also love it. It's cool that they're bringing the generations together in terms of the starfighters. And one too from
the
pilot.
The pilot, yeah, that was really cool because it took me a second. We've obviously seen him before. I do appreciate when before we watch a new episode is that they kind of flash back like previously on The Mandalorian, but they flash back to the episode where it was Din Djarin, Grogu, and the Frog Lady on that ice planet or whatever it was, and that's when we first see the pilot.
Right.
I can't think of his name, and then how we're what do you call it? The callback to that, and then we see him again in this season, and how he comes to the Mandalorians for help with what's going on with what was it? Plazier 15? Whatever the case was going on.
Or whatever.
The pirates.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said
that was in
Plazier 15.
Navarro with the pirates, right?
Navarro, thank you. Yeah. So because the New Republic couldn't step in because of policies, regulation, blah blah blah. The fact that you kind of have to wiggle your way around and try to help, but you can't do it directly. It's kind of funny how the pilot came to Mando, and then now Mando is coming to the pilot at the very end saying, hey, I want to be an independent contractor for the New Republic, but we keep it on the DL. I thought that was fabulous.
Yeah, on a case-by-case basis, kind of. So
yeah,
that
was funny. So what I was gonna say with oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'll continue.
I was going to mention in that fourth episode, the one that had Keller and Beck. One of my favorite scenes of the season was when Grogu is doing the training with the foundling or what with the guy's kid or whatever, and like he's trying to figure out how to. Was it like paintball? Kind of?
It was like paintball. It was adorable.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, that was a highlight. Yeah, anytime that you could get him to do something.
I was like, could you imagine like Din Djarin afterwards, like having to clean Grogu's little one and only outfit? Like,
his onesie.
Why did I tell him to do this? Like, this is not coming out. This paint is not coming out. You know?
I think he has a shout accessory on the one arm that cleans it off. And I'm just kidding.
Right. He uses one of his little blasters.
Exactly. Yep.
It's a lightsaber like tide marker or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So adorable. Yeah, I mean, there was highlights in this show for sure. I mean, overall, since season 1, I have enjoyed this show, and I think now more so because Pedro Pascal has rightfully become more popular. Obviously, doing like The Last of Us alongside of doing just the VO for, The Mandalorian. You know, I think people are kind of now maybe jumping on the bandwagon, if you will. But like, I've liked this show since day one. Like I was super excited to see it, and you know, like I said, gave me all Grogu. You know, I'm very curious to see on what adventures they may go on now that he's an apprentice to Din Djarin, and is he going to talk? Is he ever going to actually say a word? Because he doesn't have IG-11 anymore. He can't use yes, no. You know, he can't do that anymore. But yeah. I'm very curious to see what happens.
Him and IG-11 was such a it was so great for the story, but also it's like you could see Star Wars is like, oh, we're gonna make so much money with these figures and these toys. Like this is like they're just thinking like, man, this is just this is a cash cow right here because
without a doubt.
It's so cute, like him in that figure, but then like it is also very practical, and it made him more mobile and more a part of the storyline. So very good choice. Nice. There you go.
Very well done.
I should have been wearing this the whole time I've been doing this pod, because this is supposed to be like a child bathrobe.
Does Luna still have the one Grogu thing? You got her. I remember you had it for the Book of Boba Fett podcast. Something for Luna. Yeah. Oh, that's it. Okay,
that's it. This is
okay. Cool. Gotcha.
So where I'm set up, there's a little like bench that this is her perch where she looks out the window, and this is what she sleeps on.
Oh, that's okay. Gotcha.
She and Grogu are one. They are one with the Force, and the Force with them.
that was the great reference to Rogue One. Love
I know.
That
Thank
movie.
you very much. Anyway, I thought this season was. I thought it was well.
My only sadness of all 3 seasons was the loss of the Razor Crest. When the my love of race cars and my love of objects of speed. When he lost the Razor Crest, broke my heart. That was the only sad part I have of all 3 seasons was the loss of the Razor Crest. The end one's cool, and I could see why they did what they did, but I did love that ship. So when I get a chance to play Star Wars Battle Pyre thing, I do pick the Razor Crest in my end. So
I feel like we're gonna see that come back. Like he'll make it. They'll make a new one or something. In the future, maybe not.
I think Moff Gideon has come back with the Darksaber and the Razor Crest.
He just has it all.
Exactly.
Man.
He's gonna get him back. I got your ship and I got your saber.
Right,
kidding, guys.
And he's coming back with Boba Fett. No,
oh boy, that hurts me right here, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, I mean, I like the little nuggets that you get here and there, like
Absolutely.
the callbacks to like the classics, the prequels. We get a little bit here and there, obviously, with the sequels, because obviously with the General Hux kind of reference, I already mentioned it's another Gleason.
That's great. I had to look it up. That's amazing. Real quick,
go ahead.
Can I ask you guys a quick question?
Yeah.
I know my bandwidth's limited, so this is the only Star Wars spinoff series I've watched. I know you guys watched Obi-Wan, Andor, some of the other ones. Would you say this one has the best callback nuggets, best ties to all 9 movies, or do the others do a pretty good job too? It just from the comments I've seen, this one really has callbacks to the original 4, 5, and 6, some to what's coming in 7, 8, 9, and some callbacks obviously to 1, 2, and 3. Just what are your in 90 seconds less, if I know we're limited on time, what your feeling is?
Brittany, you take that first.
Okay.
I think I'll speak for both of us, Justin. Obi-Wan, we're not even going to talk about that. We're not even going to reference that. That's why we didn't do a pod, because that's how much we did not like Obi-Wan.
The problem with Obi-Wan is that it made decisions and did things that kind of like that didn't really jive with A New Hope. Like it really. No. I mean, yeah, there's like references and like things that are kind of like foreshadowing things, but then it's like the way they decided to do it, just not the way you should do it. It just didn't work for me.
It really didn't. With Andor, like I said, that 3 episodes. Any of you who have not watched Andor, once you get past the 3rd episode, it gets good.
Okay. All right, I will take your advice. I'll maybe binge watch that Memorial Day weekend.
Woo! Okay. Have a drink. Right. But anyway, Andor. I think Andor, it's its own containment. Like there's obviously, because it's part of the Star Wars universe, it leads up to that of A New Hope.
And he's the actor that is in Rogue One, that perishes in Rogue One, right? So we know what's going to happen on that kind of thing. So
right, and yes, we already know his fate. To say if there's like callbacks to anything, that's a little hard to say, with the exception of maybe one character. There is a character she's a senator that we see in the originals.
Yes. The redheaded senator. Yes.
Redheaded senator. Yep. Yeah. Her. I can't think of her name.
Is it Mon Mothma? Senator?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. Yep. Yeah. So
there's a young version of her in one of the shows too. Yeah.
Exactly. It's Andor. So yeah, that's where you kind of get that connection, but at the same time, like I feel like it's its own little kind of contained story, which when we've seen these Star Wars stories, Rogue One, Han Solo, it's kind of been a hit or miss. Rogue One, I think, was done extremely well. I did enjoy Solo. Not a lot of people really did. But Andor, I feel like it's just kind of its own. It's its own. And with Mando's done a great job with callbacks.
So overall. I figured you guys were going to say that, but I hadn't seen the other. So just comments I saw, and you guys have seen the other one. So just the callbacks to 4, 5, and 6 for sure. And 7, 8, 9 haven't happened to lean that way, but some things back to 1, 2, and 3. So the first 6 movies, that's cool. Thanks for validating that.
I think that Mandalorian is the answer because of just where it's positioned. It's because it's 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and I mean, we've already seen references to the first 3 movies with Order 66, and with the ship that he has now. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff, but also, of course, there's going to be references to the original movies. And, they're even doing the work of trying to make the sequel series better. That's why you got the clone stuff. That's why you got the Hux, which Brittany, I knew they said Hux, but I thought it was like a brother. I didn't realize it's supposed to be the same Hux. So that's interesting because I think the actor, I mean, it's his brother, but like
they should have just kept.
Are they the same age? Because like this Mandalorian episode happens, what, 15 or 20 years before the First Order stuff from
I'm not sure.
Force Awakens? I believe
it's 5 to 10 if you do the timeline. Okay. So the age would pan out.
Right.
So that's another thing. I'm glad we're talking kind of about like timeline and just how many years have passed, because there's in the episode of Plaza 15 when Bo-Katan and Mando are investigating the droid malfunctions, if you will. These are droids that we've seen from the sequels, or I'm sorry, the prequels, right? Yeah. The battle droids. And Bo-Katan makes a reference saying, I haven't seen battle droids since the Clone Wars. Now, I haven't watched Clone Wars. My husband has. And quite honestly, I've never been a fan of episode 2. I just thought it was, I don't know. I just don't care for it. But anyway, I thought to myself, how old is Bo-Katan supposed to be? Like, how old was she in Clone Wars? And then how old is she now? Because like the way that she fights and just kind of carries herself, like, she's not a spring chicken, but like she also doesn't seem like old, like where we would maybe look at Obi-Wan or because Obi-Wan was freaking old when he died.
Right.
She doesn't look like that,
And-
and she knew Obi-Wan during Clone Wars, so it's
And
like
Ashoka's the same way too. But you enjoy
So
the fantasy
strange.
world. I know they
So
age
strange.
differently.
Yeah, this
You
is
look at
part
Doc
of
Brown. He showed up, that in that DeLorean. I know it's
in
kidding.
DeLorean.
that's great.
That's funny.
Exactly.
I didn't see in those memes. That's great.
Oh, so funny. So
So Drew, I wanted to ask you before we talk about the future of Mandalorian, are there any other highlights, things you want to bring up from the season that we haven't talked about?
We hit most of them. The one character I really thought came out again was his name Paz Vizsla. You could see him heading the hero's death, but you look at his development over all 3 seasons. To me, he was the Jesse the Body of the whole Mandalorian crew.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed his development and his sacrifice, and his son. I feel bad for his son, but the Mandalorians will take care of him. I was also impressed. I can't remember which episode when all the Mandalorians was it 5 or no, was it the 6th with Bryce? But after they go back to Axe Wolves and all that, the fact that the lead female of the Mandalorian tribe that Mando's been part of, that she is so gracious and so willing to let Bo-Katan Kryze respect. I thought that was unique because I had expected a standoff between 2 of them.
Oh, you mean the armorer?
The armorers, that's what her name is. And because she kind of led that one fact or section or tribe, and she was so gracious that I thought it was very awesome. And I said, this is going 1 of 2 ways, and it went the other way. I was expecting a standoff, and she was, that was the two things I really enjoyed, and on top of everything else we've mentioned, those 2 factors.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the armorer character, because there was a lot of speculation a couple weeks ago that I saw online that a lot of people thought she was going to be a villain, just by the way she was kind of positioned throughout the episodes. They were trying to like they thought she was going to have a heel turn. I didn't necessarily see that, but I thought, well, that would be interesting. So like, whatever, if you make it work, cool.
The second to last episode a week ago was with Spies. That's the only thing, because I had saw something then I'm like, that might be but that wasn't the turn it took. So again, I could see where the predictions or speculation would be on that.
I agree. I could see how one would look at the armorer, who's, like Drew said, has led this faction or this tribe for so long, and then you have Bo-Katan Kryze. Like she knew who Bo-Katan was from the get-go, right? She recognized the status and what have you. But I think at the same time, her being the armor wanted to reunite the tribes of Mandalore and then retake Mandalore, because Bo-Katan, who's just when we first see her in this season, it's just her, like the people that she once worked with, like, left her. They followed Axe Wolves. She just kind of was living in isolation. And then when she saved Mando, which, by the way, that was a great episode when she did come in saving him with a dark saber, and then see him walk into the waters and see the mythosaur, like there's something that changed in Bo-Katan. And I think for Bo-Katan to kind of like lose the bitterness about everything that she's gone through, and then to see the importance of being amongst her own people, I think that was far more important in terms of storytelling than maybe making the armor, let's say, like do a heel turn or like trying to fight Bo-Katan. You know what I'm saying? Like the armor, she's very much like, this is the way, this is how we do things. We follow the creed. Now that's just based on interpretation. Bo-Katan does too, but she does it her way. And I think it doesn't matter like whose way is done, as long as we're together. I really like that about it, because when she allowed Bo-Katan to remove the helmet and say, hey, you need to bring in the rest of you back to us and let's go, it was like she's charging her with what would have been Bo-Katan's like duty as like a ruler. So that was really cool to me.
Yeah, because she did things so black and white, and this is the way. That's where I was wondering if that was going to clash, because I thought Bo-Katan actually was living a little more freestyle Mandalorian life, but it turned out very well. I was very impressed.
Yeah, I was too. I was really, and that's the other thing, because I just mentioned about the waters of Mandalore, and we see it in this finale, the Paz Vizsla's son, I guess, more or less being baptized.
Yep. We can use one of term.
That's the only word I can can come up with. And you see the camera, moving, and like Grogu looking down into the water, and you see it zoom to the mythosaur. It's like, okay, now that they're back on Mandalore, Is everyone going to see this mythosaur that they believe to have been killed by, you know, Mandalore the Great? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm very curious.
Real quick question for you guys. You know that Grogu is strong in the Force. I know the Force can reach out to all living things. I do feel the mythosaur has a link with Grogu. And I think when he looked in the water, that's why they did that. You can't forget. But that was just what I saw. And just
I like it.
My years of experience of watching and watching the movies, seeing the books.
Of being one with the Force, I get it.
One in the Force, and then you saw him open the eyes and just kind of like things are right, you know. And now it's time to take it to the whatever next level. That's what I saw.
Yeah, but then it's you know, this whole premise of Mandalore was found, or Mandalore the Great was defeated the mythosaur,
Right.
and then to maybe come find out that that's all been a lie. Like maybe their whole way of life has been a lie. The creed is a lie. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, could they fall apart as a result of being back on Mandalore?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's very silly about their life, and it reminded me when you mentioned the helmet, was the fact that like whenever they got their food, they had to like all go off to like a separate place to take off their helmet to eat. I'm just like, come on, like let's figure out a better way, because that just sounds ridiculous. Like to have to do that every time you eat. Like if you're with 20 other Mandalorians, you have to just go find your own little private spot. Like,
but
go ahead.
I wonder now that Din Djarin has taken Grogu as his son, can he take off his helmet in front of his son or not? You know, I don't know how this works.
Right. Well, I mean, if I'd been in the tribe with a helmet, I'd have been doing like muscle milkshakes through a straw under the helmet, so I'd have been good. So, but I'm just saying,
he would have gotten the attachment, like the ball cap with
that's
the
like in a reverse, coming from the belt, but that would have been me. So.
Oh man,
you're right. It was funny, the huddle, and even in one of the episodes, I think season 1, when they help out some tribe, he has to take the food, and you see him take the helmet off. You only see the back head, the kind of back in the day when Darth Vader. What does he look like under the helmet? They had that mystique about it. So. A good point, Justin, and that's well expanded upon Brittany.
So we talked about that Paz Vizsla. I just want to mention he was voiced by Jon Favreau.
No way!
Yeah,
cool.
That is cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, there was a stunt performer in the.
He's a big
costume,
guy. Whoever plays him.
Man,
he's so he's voiced by him.
That is very cool. I did not know that. Now, did Giancarlo voice himself when he was in the Dark Trooper?
Well, I think because, well, I don't know, but I mean, like, obviously he was on set the times when he doesn't have his helmet on, and he doesn't have his helmet on most of the time.
Yeah.
So I think that he probably, for all the Moff Gideon scenes, I'm pretty sure he was a part of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious if they got some other actor to voice him, like,
No, he would do the voice. He might not be the body.
Oh, no.
But
listen, if Giancarlo did, bravo to you, sir, because that was cool. That was really cool. And I think I heard him say in an interview to Jon Favreau, he's like, if you're gonna put me in Star Wars and make me the villain, I want a cape. He goes, I want a cape.
Every villain in Star Wars has a cape, at least the cool ones, right? So, well, the Mandalorians do have half capes, so
right.
Take your...
I don't know how Din Djarin has any after it being scorched like the way that it was by the Dark Trooper suit. Like how do you still have any fabric on that? Come on. Is it too with Beskar alloy? Like, is that how
maybe interwoven Beskar? So I mean didn't that armor suit look like Mithril we talked about when
a little bit
Grogu? So maybe they're mixing some of the fantasy world. All right, Justin, you're killing me. So some things I haven't had a chance to look. What's next with this?
Let's talk about the future of Mando, the Mandalorian. So there is a 4th season in development. So that cool. I mean, I think we kind of expected that, but there's some interesting news that came out recently. So as we know, the Mandalorian is the main story of the Mandoverse. Yes, there's a Mandoverse. We saw that with the Book of Boba Fett, which was a spinoff series. Ahsoka, which comes out in August, is a spinoff of the Mandalorian. We saw Ahsoka in the Book of Boba Fett also. And there's the show Skeleton Crew, which is supposed to come out in late 2023. It is also a part of the Mandoverse. It's being run by John Watts, who, if you're familiar with the Spider-Man movies from the MCU, he was the director of all 3 of the, Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home.
Nice.
So he's the showrunner for that.
Amazing movies.
Yeah, and Jude Law is starring in that series, and he's playing a Jedi. That's all we know is he's playing a Jedi. So
And this is
But-
a skeleton crew you're talking about?
Skeleton Crew, yep. This is all a part of the Mandoverse.
Hmm.
And it was announced a couple weeks ago at Star Wars Celebration in London that Dave Filoni is working on a feature film that they don't have a title for yet that will serve as the conclusion to the Mandoverse. So
Yep.
all of these stories are going to coalesce into this movie where I guess it'll kind of lead into it'll resolve the Mando storyline, but
And
also I guess lead into the sequel series. Yeah.
If they do a Grand Admiral Thrawn series, I know that the term redemption they use a lot in the series is actually the title of the very last chapter, season 1. But this whole thing will redeem myself if they do something that leads in. Then they bring the Grand Admiral Thrawn trilogy. Unfortunately, they can't because some of the characters and actors have died. But if you guys get a chance to read the books, I just envision those as amazing movies.
My brother is a huge Thrawn fan, and the year we went to Comic Palooza here in Houston, my brother made it his mission to find the author of Thrawn.
Kevin J. Anderson did those, or Thrawn, the series or the books I'm talking about.
The books,
Kevin J.
The
Anderson.
books, So he found him.
Cool.
He got him to autograph the books. My husband bought him the latest, whatever it was at the time, and it totally made my brother's
very cool
day. It was really cool. It was really cool. So, but with Thrawn, like we mentioned, Thrawn's actually going to be featured in, I think it's going to be Ahsoka.
He's in Ahsoka for sure.
He's in Ahsoka. Yeah. He'll be played by Lars Mikkelsen, who plays a wonderful villain. He played one of the villains in BBC Sherlock, opposite of Benedict Cumberbatch. Man, that guy is, and based on the features, like the physical features of Thrawn, I think Lars Mikkelsen is going to nail it. Tall, thin. He's got the facial structure. He's gonna. And
Grand Admiral Thrawn's actually one of the few non-humanoid. He's a different race. He's not a human-based race, and that's what makes it very unique. So cool. Yeah. But Justin, I don't know if it was in I Am about that, or I saw something about that Dave Filoni film, and I was like, wow, that's cool. That will be. Amazing.
Yeah, it's not clear when that's going to happen. I mean, I think it's probably down the road because Ahsoka is going to have at least a season. Right. Mandalorian's going to have another season at least. Cool. Skeleton Crew might be a couple of seasons because something about Skeleton Crew also is being described as an Amblin-like story, meaning like kind of Steven Spielberg-y kind of feel, kind of like how Stranger Things is kind of, they say it's kind of an Amblin E.T. kind of feel. So the Dave Filoni movie may be, several years down the road, but I do think that Grand Admiral Thrawn will be the ultimate big bad in that movie.
Definitely.
I don't think he'll be dispatched in just one season of Ahsoka. No. And Ahsoka may go for a couple of seasons. Mando might have a break after season 4.
It took 3 multi-100-page books to dispatch Grand Admiral Thrawn. So from 92, 93, 94. So he doesn't go away easy, trust me.
Yeah. And also it's important to remember that there may not be another season of the Book of Boba Fett, but that doesn't mean that we're not getting more Boba Fett because
he's part of the
they're kind of doing it like the MCU. And so, we're going to see these characters pop up in these other series. So I think that's really cool. I think it's cool they have a plan. I believe that Dave Filoni will have a good story. And I mean, they said it was a movie. It may end up being like a series of movies. Who knows? But
cool.
As of right now, it's going to be a movie. So I think that's a cool way to wrap up the Mandalorian character, whenever that may be. But it's not going to be anytime soon, I don't believe.
One other thing, Justin, we not highlights, but just one thing we noticed in the previous seasons of Mandalorian, we've always seen Din Djarin's face at least once. We didn't see it at all this time.
We did not.
And probably because of the fact that Pedro Pascal was filming The Last of Us and was not available to show up on set. But
that could be it.
He did the VO, so that's cool. That's that's what we need him for.
So I don't know if this is my last question, but this is one of my biggest questions. I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on this. So my favorite character, is Luke Skywalker, of course. We saw him in the season 2 finale of Mandalorian. We saw him in a couple episodes of Book of Boba Fett. I really thought we might see him in the finale today because the way the finale today was setting up, it was like they need help. And Luke is like the ultimate helper. In fact, he might be at this point in his career as a Jedi, he's probably too powerful. Honestly, I think Drew can probably speak to this, but I know there's either a novel or there's a comic book that takes place after Return of the Jedi. And Luke is so powerful that one of those walkers, those four-legged walkers comes up upon him, and he just like force crushes it.
Yeah, the AT-ATs.
AT-AT, yeah, the four-legged. What are the two-legged ones called? Are those
ATSTs?
Okay, so the AT-AT, the four-legged one, like comes upon him wherever he is, and he just like force crushes it like a can,
like his father.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's like almost overpowered. So I mean, I can see why he wouldn't appear in today's episode, but do y'all think we're going to see Luke Skywalker again later on in these other shows or this potential movie down the road? I'll let Drew go first.
I'm going to pass to Brittany. I need to think a bit on that one.
If they can make his appearance make sense.
Yeah.
That's really all that matters to me. The buzz that it would create to have Luke Skywalker come back into any one of these stories, as long as it's, well before Force Awakens, sort of time frame, right? As long as it makes sense. It seemed like they wrapped that gift when Grogu made his decision to go with Din versus staying with Luke to train. Unless maybe we see him because of Ahsoka. Ahsoka obviously knew Anakin in Clone Wars. She was his apprentice at one point, so she knows Skywalkers to a degree. Yeah. But again, it has to make sense. It can't just be like, let's throw in his cameo just for ratings. You know what I'm saying? Like, make it make sense. And we know that Star Wars at times does not do things to make sense. What's up to my brother Mike, who's joining the pod? Appreciate you being here, Mike. We're kind of close to wrapping, I think, but we've been talking about Mando review and talked about some Thrawn. I know you're a big fan of Thrawn.
Yeah, Brittany, I think you said it well there. I think that the Luke character probably was wrapped up pretty well or he was written off well enough in the Book of Boba Fett to where he doesn't need to come back. I just think that, to me, it's like, it's so tempting. Like, if you can bring Luke back and he's still like in this like awesome form during this time period in Star Wars, to me, it's so tempting. Like, I would like do it.
You'd ask me first. I deferred to Brittany first. I can't voice anybody. I agree with her. It has to make sense.
Yeah.
And I thought from the Book of Boba Fett that I agree. That was, to me, it was great he came back, but that also was moving on and letting a legend live the legacy and let these newer characters gain popularity. So if it makes sense, but I still think the Razor Crest is coming back now with Moff Gideon. You guys have me convinced of that in episode 4. So maybe Red 5 will be chasing it again. I told you guys at the end of episode 1, when I saw that X-Wing, I'd read enough books that said, I know that's Luke Skywalker. And then I'm like, that still was an amazing episode. Just absolutely amazing as a Star Wars fan. I just watched it over and over again that weekend. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, no, that moment in those episodes.
Yeah, that was season 2, right? That was season 2. He came at the end.
That was the finale of season 2,
2020.
Yeah.
I remember that.
What an entrance!
Yeah,
I've definitely watched that the most of anything on Disney Plus since Disney Plus started. I've watched that probably 15 times.
That last 10-minute scene is
So
and then
good.
like people on YouTube like took the scene and then like put like his music from Return of the Jedi in the scene. It made it so much better. Like,
oh, cool.
I wish they could have I wish they would have had that music in The Mandalorian, but I understand it.
A year before, when Cap got Mjolnir, they're up there with events in my fantasy universe, and Cap wielded Mjolnir and Luke Skywalker showed up at the end of Mandalorian. I'm like, I've lived a good life. So
yeah.
And like what your brother, I'm glad your brother put his opinion on here too, because he's a big Star Wars fan too, Brittany.
Oh yeah, huge.
I would agree. Yeah, that's just where I thought, to the point where it makes sense. So, but good question, Justin.
I mean, but like I said, we've seen them bring back people that we clearly saw die, some 30, 40 years ago. And, they brought him back without any real explanation. So who knows? We could see Luke again.
It's just very tempting,
it's very tempting. And the CGI that they use, it's so convincing.
It got better. Yeah.
Listen, there's already someone part of the Disney family. Okay, let's just put Sebastian Stan in as a stand-in younger Luke Skywalker. He looks like Mark Hamill.
He would fit so well, Brittany.
He could do it.
Yeah.
He could do it.
Yeah, but I think at this point,
and he has and he could have the cool hand arm thing because he was the Winter Soldier. So I mean, we're not straying too far from fantasy reality. That just gets
There you go.
Exactly.
Sorry, guys. I go on tangents between Marvel and Star
no,
Wars.
but you know, speaking of that, that reminds me of something in this episode that I was going to mention earlier. Is whenever Moff Gideon crushed the dark saber out of her hand, I thought she was going to lose her hand because that's such a Star Wars trope that someone gets their hand cut off. Yeah.
Yep. I thought she was. I agree with you up until the point I thought she was going to die and about that scene, and she was going to be the Paz Vizsla of the whole of this episode and the whole season, which would have made sense had they needed to write that in the storyline because of all she did, and then her death would have inspired the legacy living on. But it turned out for good for everybody. So,
but see now I'm curious, Justin, and I'd have to go back when the armorer hands Bo-Katan the flame to light the forge. I'm trying to remember which hand Bo-Katan used in order to grab it. If she used the hand that was crushed by Moff Gideon or not. Like, not saying she didn't lose it. I mean, it's just can she just not use it for the time being? I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Losing a hand is a big trope in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I think your brother had a comment on the.
Yeah, he did. So Mike says Luke actually had his hand crushed and his saber destroyed, which prompted him to create a new one with the green blade. That reminded me of what happened when her dark saber was destroyed. So yeah, Mike, we talked earlier about a couple things just to, pose on you. You can leave your thoughts in the chat. Is Moff Gideon gone? Is this the last that we've seen of the dark saber? Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I thought that was those two components were. I mean, I love the episode, but those are two things where I'm like, I don't know. I would have liked to had more of an answer for. I mean, I think Moff Gideon is coming back, obviously, but to me that saber was too important to just them lose it right there. There's got to be some story behind it.
I say he's coming back because Giancarlo Esposito was present at the Star Wars celebration in London, and there's, to me, not a real reason for him to be there if he wasn't going to continue with the show.
Right.
So, yeah, Mike agrees. He's not gone. No, he's not gone. It was too clean. All right. There needed to be burnt like body parts of him to make you believe, okay, he's gone.
Yeah, Michael, I've been around for a long time, and I'm getting convinced there's no such thing as gone in the Star Wars universe anymore. So it's all good, and for the right reasons at times.
Yeah, so. And I think now that this Mandoverse movie has been announced, I think we're not going to see any like major character deaths until that movie.
That would make sense.
And then that movie, honestly, could be a free for all. I don't really know. Because we don't really know
Survivor series or something,
right? Exactly,
a Mandoverse Survivor series.
Yeah, listen, we don't know how, because none of those characters from the Mandoverse are at all even referenced in the sequel series, except for Ahsoka's voice is heard by Rey in Rise of Skywalker, right?
Yeah,
but that's it.
I didn't realize that was his voice. Okay,
they added the woman who voiced Ahsoka for the animated series, I believe.
It wasn't Rosario Dawson. It
wasn't Rosario Dawson. No. I don't know. So Mike thinks, he says, I think Moff Gideon has other clones elsewhere, and are going to take his place, or at least one of them will.
We kind of came to that.
Yeah, I mentioned.
You convinced me, Michael.
the clone theory makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, because it worked well in Rise of Skywalker, right? Let's just keep it going. Just kidding, guys. I'm sorry, Brittany.
No, it's fine. It's just like, oh god, these sequels were just a mess. They're terrible, so terrible. No, what was I going to say? It's fine.
No, but like what Dave Filoni, he's been kind of credited with making the prequels better because of all the animated stuff that he created. And I think that the way he kind of has filled in the gaps and made these characters better than they were originally kind of drawn by George Lucas, that's now the task he has it to do with the sequel series, and that's what this Mandoverse movie will do. That's what the Mandalorian has been doing, and these other series, Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew, that's part of their job. So,
hey, they work for Disney. I think he's probably walking down the hall to Kevin Feige and getting some pointers here and there, right? You have an awesome universe. Or could we tidy up some of this stuff that was let loose? So
that's too funny, and with the fact that we learned that Grogu was, part of the whole Order 66, the execution. This is the second character that we've seen reference to that order, because the first, maybe the second, I don't even remember anymore. But in Obi-Wan, Justin, the one of the third sister,
Riva,
yeah, she was part of this. Is kind of a spoiler for you, Drew.
That's
if you
okay.
choose to watch Obi-Wan. Okay, fine.
You persuaded me easily. So.
Yeah, no. Riva character, she was training to be a Jedi, and she was she somehow survived the execution, and then she turned to the dark side. And yeah, so this is just kind of interesting that we've now seen two characters that have survived this Order 66.
Who was the name of that? Ashley, someone your brother had put in the chat. Is that
Ashley Eckstein? I think is the voice of Ahsoka.
Okay. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. So he says he's excited to see the cast from Rebels in the upcoming series or movie. Yeah. So like I said, there's Rebels, there's Clone Wars. I have not watched either. But yeah, so I'm glad that you're excited, Mike.
Good. And to share with your brother, my only sad thing about all 3 seasons was the loss of the Razor Crest. I do love my Starfighters. And since I was on that fantastic time we had at the Book of Boba Fett, I did get disappointed that Rogue Squadron, because that was due to have been out and it got delayed. So I am really looking forward to Rogue Squadron. I played the games. I read all 9 books. So I'm an X-Wing pilot through and through. I did have a Rogue Leader with zeros instead of O's and stuff on my sports car. People didn't understand what kind of doctor. I'm like, no, it says Rogue, ROGLDR. I'm not any kind of doctor, but I had to change it. But Rogue Leaders, the Rogue Squadron and Wedge Antilles led them. He always will be one of my favorite secondhand characters, because he got to have 2 Death Stars on his X-Wing, and they're teasing me, get a 3rd Death Star, you're going to be an ace. So.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, that Rogue Squadron movie's been canceled.
Or did get canceled. Oh, bummer. I didn't realize
that was going to be the Patty Jenkins movie. Patty Jenkins, of course, directed Wonder Woman and
Correct.
Wonder Woman 84.
And then go put on hold, but they went from on hold to cancel. Oh, well. Bummer.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Maybe have a new life mission.
That's the thing about Star Wars. They announce a lot of stuff, and a lot of it doesn't end up coming out. Like apparently Taika Waititi's making a Star Wars movie, and
oh wow.
I don't know. They haven't officially canceled that, but they haven't really had much of an update on that one lately.
I'll tell you what, if I make a Rogue Squadron movie, I'm going to incorporate Luna somehow or another for you, Brittany. Those ears. I love that. I love Brittany.
My baby.
I love Luna. Yep. So
my baby. I know. Sorry. She's getting a little whiny. She's like, Mom, hurry up.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. Well, to make Luna happy, let's wrap it up here, but let's get final thoughts on season 3 of The Mandalorian. Drew, what are your final thoughts looking back?
My final thoughts are not disappointed. It like you said, it was wandering a bit, but 7 and 8 brought it back, and you guys have me convinced Gone is not gone. So looking forward to season 4 and where the Mandoverse is going.
Very good. Brittany, final thoughts.
If Luna will let me. Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a slow start to begin with the season, but it eventually started picking up. Like I said, I really love the fact that and not knowing anything about Bo-Katan prior to her appearance in The Mandalorian, I've really come to love her character. I actually really love how she talks for some strange reason, which is it's a little bit more slow paced, and it's a very different way of speaking, but I don't know. There's something about it that like Katee Sackhoff just like kills it in that role. I love the kind of team up that she and Mando have and their adventures. Of course, Grogu gave me all the Grogu all day long. And just seeing that with her kind of mission is to bring back the Mandalorians to Mandalore. And now that they're there, it's like, okay, what's going to unfold now that they're there? Life has evolved since they left, and is life going to come and bite them in the ass, Mythosaur. So we'll see how that goes. The journey for Din Djarin and now Din Grogu is something I'm very much looking forward to. And I with the exception of that one episode, that stupid doctor episode, I really did enjoy the season.
Justin, I see something real quick before you wrap up.
Sure.
I do see the first movie of the Mandoverse being the Mandoverse being the Rise of the Mythosaur. Sorry, just
let's go. I'm here for the violence.
My apologies.
I was gonna say though, with the final movie that's gonna be for Mandalorian, this is what I can remember earlier. Make it into a John Wick style movie. It's gonna kill it. Kill it.
Now, this was not my favorite season of The Mandalorian, but the final 2 episodes really delivered, and now I'm looking forward to the future for this, and can't wait to see what happens with this Mandoverse movie.
Yeah.
Actually, now I'm more excited to watch Skeleton Crew, which I still don't know a ton about. There's not a whole lot out there, but I'm excited to watch that. I'm looking forward to Ahsoka, and the fact that we know there's going to be a movie down the road that's going to tile this up and make it work. I like that Star Wars has a plan. Like Star Wars finally has a plan that makes sense. So I'm on board for that. Can't wait to see how that plays out. So that's our review of season 3 of The Mandalorian. Now you know what we think about the Mandalorian. We want to know what you think about it. And Brittany, how can people tell us what they think about this season of television?
So we always tell our subscribers, by the way, Justin, we're at 255 subscribers. That's 5 more than where we were at on Monday. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you to everyone who has decided to hit that subscribe button and follow us here on the Watchers in the Basement. We've now been doing this for 5 years. We just hit 5 years not that long ago. It's crazy to think that. Yep. So we're very appreciative to every single one of our subscribers, including Drew from the get-go. And now he's on the show with us at times. So always a pleasure having you here, Drew.
We
really appreciate your insight. Yes, thank you. So yeah, subscribe here. Join us in the live chat as you see here with my brother Mike, who said he liked the Looney Tunes ending.
Yeah, that's the way folks zoomed in on Grogu.
Grogu.
Yeah.
That was adorable. Yeah, so thank you to Mike and Mel who joined us earlier. She had to leave because she hadn't watched the finale of Mando. Hopefully she'll be back to watch our replays. And with that being said, you can also leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on season 3 of The Mandalorian. Don't forget to hit that like button here on this video. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Watchers Basement. Let us know what you'd like for us to review next. We're expanding our catalog, if you will. So yeah, don't be shy about telling us what you want us to review. Do so by using the hashtag Watchers Basement. That way we can find your comment a lot faster. Also helps us grow our audience. And lastly, if you're not into our video podcasts, that's too bad, because our video podcasts also show up on our audio podcast as a video, which is just so funny to me. But we're available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Not only follow us, but give us a 5-star rating. We'd really appreciate it.
And my friends, if I could, thank you again for having me. To everyone listening, may the force be with you, and this is the way.
This is the way. Wow.
Thanks, Brittany. Thanks, Drew. So for Brittany and for Drew, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.